The great hall of Station Harmony stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Its walls were made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light, and its ceiling opened to the stars themselves through a transparent dome of impossible strength. Representatives from 300 different species filled the curved seating arrangements, their bodies ranging from the familiar to the truly alien. Some breathed oxygen. Others required tanks of methane or pools of liquid nitrogen. The Galactic Assembly had accommodated them all for over 10,000 years. Ambassador Veltorin of the Keth Dominion rose from his seat and walked to the central speaking platform. His scaled body was covered in ceremonial armor that gleamed under the crystal lights. The Keth were a proud species, conquerors of 40 worlds, and Veltorin carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. "Fellow representatives," he began, his voice amplified by translation technology that converted his words into 300 different languages simultaneously. "I wish to discuss a matter that has troubled the Dominion for many years. I speak of the humans of Earth." A murmur passed through the assembly. The humans were a minor curiosity to most species. A young civilization that had only achieved faster-than-light travel within the last century. They occupied a single world in an unremarkable solar system on the outer edge of the galaxy. By every measure, they were insignificant. 47 standard cycles ago, this assembly extended an invitation to humanity, Veltorin continued. "We offered them membership, access to trade networks, protection under galactic law. We offered them everything that young species dream of receiving." He paused for effect, his yellow eyes scanning the audience. They refused. Not once, but 47 times. Every cycle, we send the invitation. Every cycle, they send the same response. A single automated message thanking us for our interest and declining to attend. High Speaker Miranost, the leader of the assembly, pulsed with questioning light. Her body was made entirely of living crystal, similar to the walls of the hall itself. She was over 3,000 years old and had seen countless species rise and fall. Ambassador Veltorin, many young species require time to adjust to the reality of galactic civilization. Perhaps the humans are simply not ready. With respect, High Speaker, 47 cycles is more than enough time. The humans have had access to our general broadcasts. They know we exist. They know what we offer. Yet they sit on their single world and pretend the rest of the galaxy does not matter. Another representative rose to speak. This was Counselor Nemptha of the Vorn Collective, a species of telepathic beings who appeared as clouds of glowing particles held together by magnetic fields. "Our traders have visited the human system," Nemptha said, their voice emerging from a translation device since they had no physical mouth. "They report that the humans are pleasant enough. They purchase some goods, sell some of their own, but they show no interest in deeper engagement. They ask few questions about galactic politics. They seem content to remain isolated." "Content or hiding something?" Veltorin asked. "What species, upon learning that they are not alone in the universe, simply shrugs and goes about their business? It is unnatural. It is suspicious." The assembly debated for several hours. Some agreed with Veltorin that human behavior was strange and potentially threatening. Others argued that every species had the right to develop at their own pace. A few of the older races remained notably silent, watching the discussion with expressions that were difficult to read. Finally, Veltorin made his proposal. "I suggest we send a small fleet to the human system. Not an invasion force, merely a demonstration. 12 ships, enough to remind them that the galaxy contains powers far beyond their comprehension. We will give them a deadline to send representatives to our next meeting. If they comply, wonderful. If not, we will have learned something important about their true nature." The vote was close, but it passed. The Keth Dominion was authorized to conduct their demonstration. On Earth, a facility that officially did not exist, Admiral Catherine Cole watched a recording of the entire assembly session. The underground complex stretched for miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, its corridors filled with technology that would have shocked the galactic community. Humans were supposed to be primitive. Humans were supposed to be decades behind the standard development curve. The truth was very different. They finally lost patience, Catherine said to her aide. Commander Daniel Perry. He was a young officer. Barely 30, but he had been raised in the program. His entire life had been dedicated to this moment. The Keith fleet will arrive in approximately 6 weeks, Daniel reported. 12 heavy cruisers, standard Dominion configuration. We have complete technical specifications on all of them. Catherine nodded. Humanity had been collecting intelligence on the galactic community since first contact 60 years ago. They had cracked every encryption system, infiltrated every database, and mapped every power structure. The galaxy thought humans were primitive because humans wanted them to think that. Notify the Council, Catherine ordered. Begin Phase 3 preparations. And get me a line to President Mitchell. The Council of Global Defense met in a chamber even deeper underground. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat around a circular table, their faces grave. President Laura Mitchell occupied the central chair, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. The moment we have prepared for is approaching, she said. For 60 years, our predecessors worked in secret. They built the infrastructure, developed the technology, and trained the personnel. Now the question falls to us. Are we ready? General Henry Park, commander of the United Space Command, pulled up a holographic display. It showed the solar system, but not as galactic maps depicted it. This map showed the truth. Hidden shipyards orbited every major planet and moon. Manufacturing centers operated beneath the surfaces of Mars and Europa. Research facilities floated in the asteroid belt. And ships, thousands of ships, waited in darkness with their systems powered down to avoid detection. We have exceeded every projection, General Park said. Current fleet strength stands at 1,047 combat-ready vessels. Our technology is approximately 2 generations ahead of the galactic standard. Our weapons are more powerful, our shields are stronger, and our stealth capabilities are unmatched. President Mitchell studied the display, and the Keth will bring 12 ships. Yes, Madame President. 12 ships that believe they are approaching a defenseless world. Catherine Cole appeared on a secondary screen, joining the meeting remotely from her command center. Madam President, I recommend we allow the Keth to deliver their ultimatum. Let them feel confident. Let them report back to the Assembly that humanity is weak and frightened. Then, when we reveal ourselves, the impact will be that much greater. Do you want to use their arrogance against them? President Mitchell said. I want the galaxy to understand something important. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not primitive. Humanity has been watching and learning and preparing. When we finally take our seat at the table, I want everyone to understand that we earned it. Okay. The Council voted unanimously. They would wait. They would let the Keth come. And then they would show the galaxy what 60 years of silence had produced in the hidden shipyards of Luna. Workers continued their endless shifts. They had been building for 6 decades. Now finally, their work was about to be revealed. History was coming, and humanity would meet it on their own terms. The Keth demonstration fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the orbit of Jupiter. 12 heavy cruisers, each one nearly a mile long, emerged from the swirling energies of hyperspace and assumed a perfect formation. Their hulls were painted in the dark red colors of the Dominion, and their weapon arrays gleamed with the promise of destruction. Commander Tethvos stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Authority, and watched the yellow gas giant rotate slowly beneath them. He was a veteran of 3 major campaigns and had personally overseen the subjugation of 2 primitive species. This mission, he believed, would be the easiest of his career. Scan the system, he ordered his sensor officer, a young Keth named Ralvin. I want a complete picture of human defenses. Ralvin worked at his console for several minutes, his scaled fingers moving across the controls with practiced efficiency. When he looked up, his expression showed confusion. Commander, I am detecting no military installations anywhere in the system. No orbital platforms around their homeworld. No defense stations around their moon. No fleet presence of any kind. Tethvos clicked his teeth in amusement. Truly? They have nothing? I am detecting civilian traffic, Commander. Transport ships, mining vessels, a few scientific stations. but nothing military. If they have any warships at all, they must be hidden on the planet's surface. Surface-based defense, Tethvo snorted. How primitive. They probably have a few aircraft and some ground-based missiles. Nothing that could threaten a proper starship. He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to the planet. Maximum broadcast power. I want every human on that world to hear my words. The communications officer nodded and made the necessary adjustments. Channel open, Commander. Tethvo straightened his posture and adopted his most commanding voice. Attention, planet Earth. I am Commander Tethvos of the Keth Dominion Fleet. For 47 cycles, your species has ignored the generous invitations of the Galactic Assembly. This insult will no longer be tolerated. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. You have one rotation of your world to prepare a diplomatic delegation. This delegation will accompany my fleet back to Station Harmony, where they will formally apologize to the Assembly and apply for membership status. If you fail to comply, the Dominion will be forced to take more direct action. You have been warned. Tethvos cut the transmission and settled back into his command chair. Now we wait. Keep all weapons charged and all shields at standby. These primitives may try something foolish. On Earth, the broadcast was received clearly in every nation. Ordinary citizens looked up at their screens with a mixture of fear and confusion. The government, however, had been expecting this moment. President Laura Mitchell convened an emergency meeting of the Global Defense Council within the hour. The secure chamber, buried deep beneath the mountains, filled with the leaders who had kept humanity's secret for so long. The Keth have delivered their ultimatum, President Mitchell announced. We have approximately 24 hours to respond. General Henry Park stood at the tactical display, where a three-dimensional image of the solar system showed 12 red dots near Jupiter. Their fleet is exactly where we predicted. Standard Keth formation, no surprises. They believe they are in complete control of the situation. They have no idea what they are dealing with, said Admiral Catherine Cole, her image appearing on the main screen. She was already aboard her flagship, the carrier Endurance, which floated silently in the darkness between Mars and the asteroid belt. My fleet is ready to move on your command, Madam President. Defense Secretary Victor Hughes, a heavy-set man with graying temples, leaned forward. What is our current force positioning? We have the first fleet hidden in the asteroid belt, Catherine reported. 312 vessels. The second fleet is on the far side of Mars, another 280 ships. The third fleet is scattered throughout the outer system in stealth positions, 455 vessels. All told, we can bring over 1,000 warships to bear within 2 hours of the activation order. President Mitchell studied the display carefully. And the Keth have 12 ships. 12 ships that believe they are threatening a defenseless planet, Catherine confirmed. Madam President, we can end this confrontation without firing a single shot. The moment they see our fleet, they will understand that they made a terrible miscalculation. What about galactic reaction? Asked Secretary of State Patricia Dunn. If we reveal our strength, every species in the Assembly will know we have been deceiving them for 60 years. That is precisely the point, Catherine said. We did not build this fleet to hide forever. We built it so that when we finally revealed ourselves, no one would dare threaten us again. The galaxy respects strength. After today, they will respect humanity. President Mitchell made her decision. Admiral Cole, you have authorization to activate the fleet. I want the Keths surrounded and neutralized. No casualties if possible, but make absolutely certain they understand the situation. Understood, Madam President? Cole, out. In the asteroid belt aboard the Endurance, Catherine turned to her command crew. They were the best officers in the fleet, men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Commander Daniel Perry stood at her side, his young face set with determination. Send the activation signal, Catherine ordered. All fleets, all vessels. It is time. The signal propagated outward at the speed of light, reaching hidden ships throughout the solar system. Aboard each vessel, crews who had waited for years received the same message. Engines that had been dormant hummed to life. Weapon systems ran diagnostic checks. Navigation computers calculated intercept courses. the greatest military secret in human history was about to be revealed. Near Jupiter, Commander Tethfos remained unaware of the storm that was approaching. His sensor officer continued to report only civilian traffic. His confidence remained absolute. Commander Ralvin said suddenly, his voice uncertain, "I am detecting unusual energy readings throughout the system. They appear to be coming from everywhere at once." "What kind of readings?" "I am not certain, Commander. They do not match any known signature in our database, but they are growing stronger."
Tethfos leaned forward in his chair.
For the first time since arriving in the system, he felt a small flicker of doubt. Something was happening. Something unexpected. He had no idea how unexpected it was about to become. The energy readings continued to grow stronger. Ralvin worked frantically at his sensor console, trying to understand what he was seeing. Throughout the Keth fleet, other sensor officers reported the same phenomenon. Strange signatures were appearing across the entire solar system, concentrated in areas that had seemed completely empty just moments before.
"Commander,"
Ralvin said, his voice rising with alarm. "The readings are resolving into distinct sources. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. They are appearing everywhere." Commander Tethfos stood from his chair. "Show me." The main view screen shifted to display the space around Jupiter. At first, there was nothing but the familiar darkness of the void, broken only by distant stars. Then, one by one, shapes began to materialize. Ships. Human ships. They emerged from seemingly nothing, their angular hulls reflecting the light of the distant sun as their stealth systems. Deactivated. The first ships to appear were destroyers, sleek vessels bristling with weapon arrays. They were followed by cruisers, then battleships, then massive carriers that dwarfed everything else. Each ship bore the same insignia on its hull, a blue circle containing the image of Earth surrounded by stars. "Sensor count," Tethfos demanded, his voice barely above a whisper. Ralvin stared at his console with wide eyes. "Commander, I am reading 200 vessels in our immediate vicinity, but there are more appearing throughout the system. Much more. The count is climbing past 500, 700, 900. The number continued to rise. Within minutes, the Keth fleet of 12 ships found itself surrounded by more than 1,000 human warships. They filled the space around Jupiter, a wall of metal and weapons that blocked every possible escape route. A transmission came through on the command frequency. Tethfos accepted it with shaking hands. The face that appeared on his view screen belonged to a human female, with short gray hair and cold blue eyes. She wore a military uniform, covered in insignia that Tethfos did not recognize. Her expression showed no fear, no anger, only calm confidence. "Commander Tethfos," she said, "I am Admiral Catherine Cole of the United Earth Fleet. You demanded a response to your ultimatum. Here is our response." Tethfos tried to speak, but his throat had gone dry. He had come to this system expecting to intimidate primitives. Instead, he found himself facing a military force that could destroy his entire fleet in moments. "This is impossible," he finally managed. "Our intelligence indicated that you had no military capability. No fleet. Nothing. No. Your intelligence showed you exactly what we wanted you to see," Catherine replied. "For 60 years, humanity has hidden its true strength from the galaxy. Every meeting we skipped bought us time. Every invitation we declined gave us another year to build. Now we have built enough." The tactical display on the Crimson Authority showed the full scope of the human fleet. Over 1,000 vessels surrounded the Keth ships. Their weapon systems were powered up and ready to fire. Their shields were at full strength. Escape was completely impossible. "What do you want?" Tethfos asked. "I want you to return to the Galactic Assembly with a message. Tell them that Earth has decided to attend the next meeting. Tell them we will send a full diplomatic delegation." Catherine paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a warning. "And tell them that humanity remembers those who threatened us. We do not seek war, but we will never again allow anyone to speak to us from a position of power." Tethfos looked at his officers. Their faces showed the same shock and fear that he felt. They had been completely outmaneuvered. The species they had dismissed as primitive had been playing a far longer game than anyone realized. "I will deliver your message," Tethfo said quietly. "But the assembly will have questions. They will want to know how this was possible. How you hid such a fleet from our sensors." "They can ask those questions when our delegation arrives," Catherine said. "For now, you and your fleet will withdraw from our solar system. You will not return without invitation. Is that understood?" "Understood, Admiral." The transmission ended. Tethfo stood in silence for a long moment, staring at the human ships that filled his view screen. Then he turned to his navigation officer, plot a course back to Keth's space. Maximum speed. All the Keth fleet departed Earth's solar system without incident. As they entered hyperspace, Tethfos took one final look at the planet they had come to threaten. It hung in space like a blue and white jewel, small and seemingly fragile. He knew now that appearances meant nothing. On the bridge of the Endurance, Admiral Cole watched the Keth ships vanish into hyperspace. Commander Daniel Perry stood beside her, his face showing the same relief that she felt. "They are gone, Admiral," he reported. "All 12 vessels have left the system." "Good. Order all fleets to stand down from battle stations. Maintain defensive positions until further notice." "Yes, Admiral." Daniel hesitated. "Admiral, do you think they will actually deliver our message? Or will they lie about what happened here?" Catherine considered the question. Commander Tethfos is a proud officer. He will not want to admit that he was completely defeated without firing a shot. But he is also a survivor. He knows that if he lies, and the truth comes out later, his career will be destroyed. She turned away from the view screen and walked to her ready room. Besides, it does not matter what he says. When our delegation arrives at the assembly, the truth will be obvious. 1,000 ships cannot be hidden forever. The galaxy will know that humanity has awakened. The news spread across Earth within hours. Citizens who had lived their entire lives under the shadow of galactic superiority learned that their world possessed a secret fleet of enormous power. The reaction was a mixture of shock, pride, and relief. For the first time since first contact, humans did not have to fear the larger universe. President Laura Mitchell addressed the planet in a global broadcast. She stood before a window that showed the night sky, where the distant lights of the fleet could now be seen orbiting their world. "My fellow humans," she began. "For 60 years, our governments have worked together in secret to protect our world. We built a fleet. We developed technology. We prepared for the day when the galaxy would threaten us. That day came, and we were ready." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Tomorrow, we will send representatives to the Galactic Assembly. We will take our place among the stars as equals, not as subjects. The era of hiding is over. The era of human power has begun." Across the planet, people cheered. After 6 decades of silence, humanity was finally ready to speak. The news of the incident at Earth spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Every species with access to faster-than-light communication received reports within days. The details varied wildly depending on the source. Some accounts claimed the humans had revealed 100 ships. Others spoke of 10,000. A few suggested that the entire Keth fleet had been destroyed, though this was quickly denied by Keth's authorities. What could not be denied was the simple fact that humanity had hidden a massive military force from galactic detection for 60 years. This was not supposed to be possible. Young species were carefully monitored during their development. Their technology was assessed, their capabilities cataloged, their potential threats evaluated. Somehow, the humans had slipped through every safeguard. Station Harmony prepared for the largest assembly meeting in living memory. Representatives from species who had not attended a session in centuries requested seats. Observers from the farthest reaches of the galaxy made the journey to witness what promised to be a historic moment. The crystal halls filled to capacity. And still more arrived. High Speaker Miranost oversaw the preparations with growing concern. She was old enough to remember the last time a young species had surprised the galaxy. That surprise had led to a war lasting 300 years. She prayed the situation would unfold differently. Ambassador Veltorin of the Keth Dominion sat in his usual seat. But his demeanor had changed completely. The proud warrior who had demanded a demonstration of force now sat quietly, his scales dull with shame. His government had recalled him for questioning, but he had requested permission to attend this session first. He wanted to see the humans arrive. He needed to understand what he had missed. The chamber fell silent as the main doors opened. Admiral L. Catherine Cole entered first. She wore the formal dress uniform of the United Earth Fleet. Dark blue fabric decorated with gold insignia that marked her rank and service. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight arrangement. Her blue eyes swept across the assembled representatives with calm assessment. She walked with the measured pace of someone who had nothing to prove and nothing to fear. Behind her came President Laura Mitchell, wearing a simple suit of Earth fashion that made no attempt to imitate galactic styles. She was flanked by Secretary of State Patricia Dunn and General Henry Park, followed by a delegation of diplomats and military officers. They moved in formation, their footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. 300 species watched incomplete, quiet as the humans crossed the chamber floor. Many had never seen a human in person before. They were smaller than expected, their bodies soft and seemingly fragile. Yet they walked like conquerors. It's like beings who knew exactly what they were capable of. President Mitchell took her position at the speaking platform. She looked out at the sea of alien faces, some curious, some hostile, some simply confused. Then she began to speak. High Speaker Miranost, distinguished representatives of the Galactic Assembly. I am Laura Mitchell, President of the United Earth Government. After 60 years of silence, humanity has accepted your invitation. A murmur passed through the chamber, quickly silenced as she continued. I understand that many of you have questions. You want to know why we ignored your invitations for so long? You want to know how we hid our fleet from your sensors? You want to know what our intentions are? She paused, letting the tension build. I will answer all of these questions honestly. 60 years ago, humanity achieved faster than light travel. Within months of our first journey beyond our solar system, we encountered traders from the Vorn Collective. They welcomed us to galactic civilization and provided us with basic information about the larger universe.
How will we learn?
Alarmed us. The galaxy was not a peaceful place. Stronger species routinely exploited weaker ones. Wars were common. Entire civilizations had been destroyed or enslaved. The Galactic Assembly existed to maintain order. But it was an order that favored the powerful. President Mitchell's voice remained calm, but her words carried the weight of 6 decades of careful planning. We faced a choice. We could join the Assembly immediately as a weak and vulnerable species, hoping that the existing powers would treat us fairly. Or we could wait. We could develop our technology in secret, build our military strength, and emerge only when we could stand as equals to any civilization in the galaxy. We chose to wait. For 60 years, we declined every invitation. We allowed galactic intelligence agencies to believe we were primitive and harmless. We hid our fleet behind stealth technology that your sensors could not detect, and we watched. We learned everything about galactic politics, galactic technology, galactic warfare. She turned to look directly at Ambassador Veltorin, who could not meet her eyes. When the Keth Dominion sent 12 warships to threaten our world, they expected to find a defenseless planet. Instead, they found over 1,000 vessels waiting for them. They were surrounded, outgunned, and completely at our mercy. We allowed them to leave peacefully, with a message for this assembly. President Mitchell returned her attention to the full chamber. That message is simple. Humanity is not a young species asking for protection. Humanity is a major military power, ready to participate in galactic affairs. We do not seek conquest. We do not want war. But we will never allow anyone to threaten our world or our people again. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions, demanded explanations, expressed outrage and admiration in equal measure. High Speaker Miranost pulsed with light as she tried to restore order. Admiral Catherine Cole stepped forward to stand beside her president. Her presence seemed to quiet the chamber somewhat. Everyone remembered the reports of the human fleet. Everyone knew that she commanded that fleet. The humans have spoken their piece, High Speaker Marinos said finally. Now I would ask them a question of my own. President Mitchell nodded. Please, High Speaker, you've built a fleet capable of challenging any power in the galaxy. You have demonstrated that you cannot be intimidated or threatened. But what do you intend to do with this power? Will you use it as others have, to conquer and exploit? Or do you have a different vision? It was the question that mattered most. President Mitchell had prepared her answer for years. High Speaker, humanity has a saying. With great power comes great responsibility. We did not build our fleet to conquer. We built it to protect, and not just to protect ourselves. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from species great and small. The galaxy needs a new kind of power. A power that protects the weak instead of exploiting them. A power that enforces law instead of ignoring it when convenient. Humanity intends to be that power. We offer our strength to any species that seeks peace and justice. We offer our technology to any world that wishes to develop. We offer our friendship to any civilization that treats us with respect. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was firm. But to those who threaten the innocent, who enslave the helpless, who believe that strength gives them the right to do as they please, we offer only warning. Humanity remembers those who once thought us weak. We will not forget. The assembly fell silent once more. What had begun as a curiosity about a primitive species had become something far more significant. A new power had risen in the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same. 1 year had passed since humanity's dramatic entrance into galactic politics. In that time, the balance of power had shifted in ways that no one could have predicted. The 1,000 warships that had revealed themselves were, according to new intelligence reports, merely the first wave. Human industrial capacity continued to produce new vessels at an alarming rate. Their technology developed in isolation, solved problems that had frustrated galactic engineers for millennia. Admiral Catherine Cole stood on the observation deck of Station Harmony, watching through the transparent walls as human engineers worked alongside a dozen other species to upgrade the station's aging power systems. The old crystal-based technology was being replaced with fusion reactors of human design, far more efficient and reliable than anything the galaxy had produced before. A remarkably calm for someone who has turned the galaxy upside down, a voice said behind her. Catherine turned to find Ambassador Veltorin approaching. The Keth diplomat moved differently now, without the arrogance that had once defined him. His scales had regained some of their color, but his eyes showed the wisdom of someone who had learned a difficult lesson. Ambassador Catherine acknowledged him with a polite nod. I was wondering when you would seek me out. I have been watching your people for the past year, Veltorin said, coming to stand beside her at the window, trying to understand what I missed. How did a species that seems so primitive manage to deceive the entire galaxy? We did not deceive anyone, Ambassador. We simply showed you what you expected to see. The galaxy looked at humanity and saw a young, weak species with no real potential. We let you believe that because the alternative was far too dangerous. Veltorin considered this for a long moment. You planned this from the very beginning. The long silence, the rejected invitations, the sudden revelation at exactly the right moment. It was all calculated. Catherine did not deny it. When humanity first learned about galactic civilization, we faced an impossible situation. We were too weak to participate safely, but too proud to submit to more powerful species. Our leaders made a decision that shaped our entire society for 6 decades. Hide, build, wait, and now. Now we are finally ready to be who we were always meant to be. The observation deck doors opened, and President Laura Mitchell entered with her usual entourage. She had aged slightly in the past year, the stress of leading humanity through its transformation visible in new lines around her eyes. But her spirit remained unbroken. Admiral Cole, Ambassador Veltorin, she greeted them both. I hope I am not interrupting. Not at all, Madam President, Catherine said. The ambassador was just asking about our long-term plans. President Mitchell smiled slightly. Ah, yes. The question everyone wants answered. She moved to the window, looking out at the stars that humanity now claimed as their own. When I was a young girl, my grandmother told me stories about the early days of the program. She was an engineer, one of the first to work on our stealth technology. She spent her entire life building ships that she would never see in action.
Oh.
The president turned to face both Catherine and Veltorin. She died believing that her work might protect her grandchildren someday. She never imagined that I would be the one to reveal it to the galaxy. 3 generations of humans gave their lives to this project, Ambassador. 3 generations of secrecy, sacrifice, and hope. Veltorin lowered his head in what Catherine recognized as a Keth gesture of respect. My government was foolish to threaten your world. We did not understand what we were dealing with. No, you did not, President Mitchell agreed. But I do not hold that against you. The galaxy has operated by certain rules for thousands of years. Stronger species dominate weaker ones. That is the way it has always been. We simply chose to change the rules. Reports came in daily from across the galaxy. Human traders had established commercial relationships with over 100 species. Human engineers were in demand everywhere, their superior technology commanding premium prices. Human diplomats negotiated treaties and resolved disputes that had festered for centuries. But the most significant change was military. 3 species that had been suffering under the domination of more powerful neighbors had formally requested human protection. In each case, the oppressing power had backed down. Rather than face the United Earth Fleet, slavery rings that had operated openly for decades collapsed when human warships appeared in their systems. General Henry Park briefed the Global Defense Council on these developments. Our presence alone is changing galactic behavior. Species that once exploited weaker civilizations are now reconsidering their actions. No one wants to be the next power that draws our attention. Secretary of State Patricia Dunn added her perspective. Our diplomatic influence has increased accordingly. When humanity speaks in the assembly, the other representatives listen. Not because they agree with us, but because they know we can back up our words with action. President Mitchell absorbed these reports with quiet satisfaction. This is what we always hoped for. Not conquest, but influence. Not war, but deterrence. The galaxy is becoming a safer place because humanity chose to be strong. On Earth, life continued in ways both familiar and transformed. Citizens who had grown up believing their world was alone in the universe now watched news reports about galactic affairs. Children dreamed of serving in the fleet that protected their planet. Universities taught xenolinguistics and interstellar navigation. Alongside traditional subjects, the hidden facilities that had once built warships in secret now produced them openly. New shipyards rose in orbit around Earth, visible to anyone who looked up at the night sky. The era of hiding was truly over. Admiral Catherine Cole returned to Earth after 6 months at Station Harmony. She stood on the grounds of the memorial that had been erected in the Rocky Mountains. Near the entrance to the old underground complex, the names of every person who had contributed to the program were carved into the stone. Thousands upon thousands of names, representing 60 years of sacrifice. Commander Daniel Perry joined her there. He had been promoted to captain now, commanding his own vessel in the 2nd Fleet. "Admiral," he said quietly, "are you all right?" Catherine reached out and touched one of the names on the wall. Her mother, her grandmother, her great-grandfather, who had been among the very first to propose hiding humanity's true capabilities. "I am thinking about everyone who made this possible," she said. "All the people who worked and sacrificed and died so that their descendants could stand in the light. They never saw the fleet they built. They never witnessed the day we revealed ourselves. But everything we have accomplished is because of them." Daniel nodded solemnly. "We owe them everything. We do. And the best way to honor their memory is to use what they gave us wisely." Catherine turned away from the memorial and looked up at the sky, where the lights of orbital shipyards sparkled among the stars. The galaxy dismissed humanity as primitive and irrelevant. They ignored us for 60 years, assuming we would remain silent forever. They were wrong. She began walking back toward the transport that would return her to space, to her fleet, to the endless work of protecting humanity's place in the universe. "They were wrong about us," she said one final time, "and we will spend the rest of history proving just how wrong they were." The galaxy had changed forever. A species that once hid in silence now stood as one of the greatest powers in existence. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through submission or luck, but through patience, planning, and 60 years of building in the darkness. The silence was over. The future had begun.